Steve got a raise on a Thursday. $4,000 a year, effective immediately. His manager told him with a handshake that felt like it meant something. He drove home that night with the windows down, even though it was cold outside. He told his wife over dinner. They ordered dessert they normally wouldn't order. And for about 6 weeks, Steve felt like a different person. Richer, sharper, like the universe had finally noticed him.
14 months later, Steve pulled up his savings account, expecting to see the raise sitting there, waiting for him like a reward he'd earned. It wasn't there. His income was higher, his lifestyle was nicer, and his savings account looked almost exactly the way it looked before the raise ever happened. He didn't buy a boat, he didn't buy a Rolex. Nothing about his life looked reckless from the outside. So where did the money go? If you've ever gotten a raise and felt richer for about 6 weeks before quietly sliding back to feeling the same amount of broke, this video is for you. Because there's a specific mechanism responsible for this, and once you can see it, you can't unsee it. My name is Nick, and I spend too much time thinking about money and the psychology behind it. Hit subscribe and give this video a thumbs up if it changes how you look at your next paycheck. Here's the myth everyone repeats. People assume lifestyle inflation means buying a fancier car or a bigger house the moment money shows up. Big, obvious, easy-to-spot upgrades. That's not what actually happens to most people, and that's exactly why most people never catch it happening to them. Here's the real truth. Lifestyle inflation almost never looks like one big decision. It looks like 15 small ones you never noticed you made. The Federal Reserve has tracked this pattern for decades across income brackets, and the finding holds up every time. As household income rises, spending rises with it at a rate that consistently outpaces what people report intending to save. Not because people are lying about their intentions, because the spending increases happen below the threshold of conscious decision-making. Think about what actually happened to Steve. The lunch that used to be packed became a lunch that got ordered, because now he could afford it. And being able to afford something feels like permission to do it. The coffee upgraded from the gas station brew to the $4 version, because $4 stopped registering as a real number. The grocery cart got a little nicer. The subscription he canceled during his budgeting phase quietly came back, plus one more he didn't have before. The apartment didn't change, but the furniture in it slowly did. None of these felt like decisions. Each one felt like a non-event. And that's the whole mechanism. Now, let's talk about why your brain does this, because this is the part that should make you a little uncomfortable. Psychologists call it hedonic adaptation. Whatever standard of living you get used to becomes your new baseline within a matter of weeks, and your brain stops registering it as an upgrade. It just becomes normal. The $4 coffee doesn't feel like a treat anymore after the third week. It feels like coffee. The nicer grocery cart doesn't feel like abundance. It feels like groceries. Your brain isn't built to track lifestyle inflation because your brain is built to normalize whatever you're currently doing so it can free up mental bandwidth for something else. That's not a character flaw. That's just how adaptation works. But it means the raise you got excited about on a Thursday will be fully normalized by the following month. And normalized things don't get questioned. Here's the part that gets me. Steve never once sat down and decided to spend his raise. There was no meeting where he chose lifestyle over savings. The raise got absorbed one invisible decision at a time until it was simply gone. The same way a glass of water evaporates without you ever seeing a single drop leave. Now pay attention, because the math on this is more brutal than people expect. Say Steve makes $70,000 a year and gets a raise to $74,000. That's $4,000 a year, or about $330 a month before taxes. If Steve does nothing intentional with that raise, research from Fidelity on saving behavior after income increases shows the typical household absorbs somewhere between 70 and 90% of a raise into increased spending within the first year. Let's say Steve absorbs 80%, which is right in that range. That means $264 of his monthly raise disappears into lifestyle he'll barely remember choosing, and only $66 a month actually reaches his savings.
Read that again. He got a $4,000 raise. His savings rate improved by less than $800 over the entire year.
Now compare that to a version of Steve who takes one deliberate action on the day the raise hits his account. He sets up an automatic transfer for half of the raise, $165 a month, moving straight into his investment account before it ever touches his checking account. He never sees it. He never decides not to spend it because it's never sitting there asking to be spent. Over 10 years at a 7% return, that $165 a month builds into roughly $28,000. The version of Steve who let the raise get absorbed ends up with less than $5,000 from the same raise over the same decade. Same raise, same person, same income. One decision made once on one Thursday is the entire difference between those two outcomes.
This is why lifestyle inflation is the quiet killer of the dead zone, that stretch between $20,000 and $80,000 in savings where progress feels invisible. Every raise is a chance to shorten that zone, or a chance to extend it. And the deciding factor isn't willpower. It's whether the decision gets made automatically, before your brain has a chance to normalize the new number.
Charlie Munger used to say that the big money is not in the buying or the selling, but in the waiting. Most people hear that and think about patience with investments. Fewer people apply it to their own paycheck. The waiting Munger meant works just as well against your own spending habits as it does for a stock you're holding. If money never sits in your checking account long enough to feel spendable, you never have to rely on willpower to protect it.
There's a version of this that hits even harder once you zoom out past a single raise. Most people don't get one raise in their career. They get 5, 6, sometimes 10 over the course of a couple decades. And if the same 80% absorption rate applies every single time, the math compounds against you in a way that's almost invisible from the inside. Someone who starts at $50,000 and ends their career at $120,000 has, on paper, more than doubled their income. But if 80% of every increase along the way got absorbed into lifestyle, their actual savings trajectory barely resembles what that income growth should have produced. They feel like they're doing better every year because, in a narrow sense, they are. Their house is nicer, their car is newer, their vacations are longer. But their net worth trajectory tells a completely different story than their income trajectory. And most people never sit down and compare the two side by side because the two numbers live in different parts of their brain. Income feels like an achievement. Net worth feels like a chore. Nobody frames a photo of their savings account. This is also why two people with the exact same income can end up in wildly different financial positions 10 years later. And it has nothing to do with who earned more or who was smarter with money in some abstract sense. It has to do with who automated the moment their income moved and who let each raise sit in checking long enough to feel spendable. Pew Research has found that Americans consistently underestimate how much their own spending has grown relative to their income over time, because spending increases arrive gradually and in small denominations, while income increases arrive as one clean number on a single day. The asymmetry in how those two things are experienced is exactly why one gets tracked obsessively and the other slips by unnoticed. None of this means Steve did anything wrong the first time around. He didn't overspend recklessly. He didn't make a single bad decision he can point to and regret. That's actually the most important part of this entire pattern. Lifestyle inflation doesn't require a mistake. It only requires the absence of a decision. Left alone, income finds its way into spending the same way water finds its way downhill, not because anyone chose that path, but because no other path was ever built.
So here's what to actually do. And I want this to feel doable, not like another financial chore you'll ignore. The next time you get a raise, before you spend a single dollar of it, before you even fully register the number, split it in half immediately. Automate half straight into your retirement account or your investment account the same day it hits, so it happens before your lifestyle has a chance to expand around it. Let yourself enjoy the other half completely guilt-free. Buy the nicer coffee. Upgrade something small. You earned it, and enjoying a raise isn't the problem. The problem is only ever the portion that vanishes without you choosing it.
If you've already gotten raises in the past that quietly disappeared, don't spiral about it. You can't automate a raise retroactively, but you can look at your current income right now and ask what portion of it is currently unaccounted for. If your income has grown over the past few years and your savings rate hasn't grown proportionally, that gap is your answer. It's not too late to redirect it, starting with your very next paycheck.
Because here's the thing nobody tells you about lifestyle inflation. It isn't really about money at all. It's about which version of your income you let become invisible. The raise you spend without noticing feels the same as money you never had. But the raise you automate before you feel it becomes something else entirely. It becomes the $28,000 Steve never had to think about. The money that was working in the background the whole time while he was living a completely normal, completely comfortable life.
Steve's next raise came 18 months later. Same handshake, same drive home with the windows down. But this time, before dinner, before dessert, before he told anyone, he opened his banking app and set up one transfer. It took him 90 seconds. He didn't feel richer that night the way he had the first time. He felt something quieter and more durable instead. The feeling of a decision that would keep paying him back long after the excitement of the raise itself had worn off. That's the difference between a raise that changes your number on paper and a raise that actually changes your life. The first one gets absorbed. The second one gets automated. And the second one is the only kind that Steve or you will still be able to feel 10 years from now.